even I rode the adventures when they came, and the thought was that this performance is not how you think about the KTMs traditionally to be. It's a far, let's say, cleaner, flatter kind of thing, right? It's not. It doesn't get frantic suddenly and
Correct.
stuff like that. And so when you take that same mood and apply it to the 250, I
Correct.
get what you're saying. That
Yeah.
it might almost like be distracting to be on the bike because you're disinterested.
In there, in the same frame as the 390X, as I said, goes the KTM Duke's engine exactly as is down to the throttle map.
Oh,
The
okay.
only change there is the gearing is different. Like they did on the Adventure versus Duke, here also it's a +3 rear sprocket, so the gearing has been lowered. Here start the problems of this motorcycle. Now on the 390 Adventure X, you have the street mode as your only riding mode. The street mode has basically a 3-step throttle map. Bottom step is very mild throttle response, then a little bit more aggressive, and then finally something approaching what you would call aggressive is how that throttle map works. The 250 Adventure feels like that but has less performance. Although technically it has the same throttle map as the Duke 250 does, which is relatively speaking the most linear throttle map KTM seems to make today. But when you add that to a motorcycle that's 15 kilos heavier, the result is not a motorcycle that at first, second and third glances feels like it has any performance at all. It just feels easy, calm, laid back and slightly sleepy. Like frankly, the last 170 kilometers I've ridden this bike, I have mostly been this close to bored. And that's because I do expect a 250 with 31 bhp to finally go at some point. But it is so far away from the bottom that I can't see the point of it.
This is very interesting because when our first, even I rode the adventures when they came, and the thought was that this performance is not how you think about the KTMs traditionally to be. It's a far, let's say, cleaner, flatter kind of thing, right? It's not. It doesn't get frantic suddenly and
Correct.
stuff like that. And so when you take that same mood and apply it to the 250, I
Correct.
get what you're saying. That
Yeah.
it might almost like be distracting to be on the bike because you're disinterested.
Yeah. And to me, I think this bike, if it had the more aggressive off-road style mode that we get on the Adventure, where the throttle response is a lot more alert, I think this bike would actually start to feel much nicer to ride. Because it almost in hindsight, it occurs to you that there is no actual lack of performance. Because it's not like you're struggling down the highway. If I'm going down the highway with a group of friends and they have the 390s and I have a 250 Adventure, we're all cruising at 80, 100 roughly with the same amount of effort. They are passing things a little bit quicker than me for sure, but it's not like I'm failing to pass anything.
Right.
So 31 bhp is genuine, but the build up to it takes so long. It's like watching a movie with a great climax, but there's 9 hours of movie to get through before you get there.
I get it. Because now it's almost like the 390's additional grunt over the 250 is an asset given the mood that the performance mood that these bikes seem to have.
Correct.
Because it just makes those overtakes no work, whereas in this you will work a bit.
Yeah, you have to do this because you have to get to that point where the throttle map finally says, oh, you really want to go? Okay, fine, let's go. And at that point, the reluctance goes away. But up to that point, the bike is just like, yeah, bro, we'll chill, bro. It's like an American teenager from the proverbial sitcom.
And in this 170 kilometers, did you think fuel efficiency difference was a
Yeah,
significant
100%. This bike can always return 4-5 kilometers per liter more. Same riding conditions. So if you ride normally, the 390s will show you, I'm going to say 25, 26, sometimes lower if you ride aggressively. This bike seems to go to 30 almost immediately and sits there. So it's not like on the highway suddenly you'll get to 35, you'll get to 32, 33. But at 30 on a 14.5 liter tank, you're already looking at a motorcycle that will go 400 kilometers down the highway before you say, I should get fuel now. So we're in a good place on that front. So there is a fuel economy advantage to it. And I'm telling you this, let's assume that you're coming up from a 100, 150cc bike to a 250. On day one, you may not agree with me that this is feeling sleepy. And I have the same fear that I had for the Speed 400 with the 250 Adventure. That 6 months from now, you would not be wanting to deal with this motorcycle at that level. I think Bajaj, KTM India, KTM Martighofen could have afforded to make the bottom end of this a lot more robust in terms of response and allowed it to be a little bit more boisterous. It does not have the power for it to feel dangerous or hairy at that point of time. It would just feel normal.
Is this also exported to any other markets?
So the 250cc KTMs were created for Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia has a 250cc tax brake law, which is very similar to our sub 4 meter car law. And it's that reason why the 250 suddenly were created. But If you look at the other side of the world, KTMs are 125s, 200s, 390s.
Exactly. So it just seems to kind of feel like it's meant to fit in somewhere else and not necessarily be the primary. I mean, it's not primarily targeted for our market.
Yeah. So to me, if you were to buy a 250 Adventure, I think you're buying a very nice bike because all the other aspects of the bike are more or less in the same place. But if you have this thought in the back of your head saying, I want an adventure tourer that I'm going to ride a lot and I'm going to ride it a lot over a long time,
Ah.
250 Adventure might not be enough engine for you to use and have fun with.
I'm going to draw a parallel here. This is something we keep saying about when we are talking about cars, because that's a really big investment. And often you'll say, I don't need to go for that. The next step, maybe it's the transmission or maybe it's the engine. And you'll say it's not really needed because that additional cost won't be justified. But trust me, the thing you will realize over time is that when you make these kind of decisions with your eyes open, and maybe if you need to spend a little bit more, you do that. What you will get is a better return on investment because then you will end up staying with that vehicle for longer instead of feeling like 2, 3 years down the line that, acha, bus, I'm done. Now I need an upgrade.
Correct.
2, 3 years typically is too soon to want an upgrade from a bike that's great. You'll find you'll have many more years with great motorcycles being able to do many more things again and again.
That is a clip from MotorInc. And what that means is if you'd like to see more of these, you can do two things. One is stay on this channel, subscribe and watch more, or you can come to the main MotorInc channel where you'll find a much longer video that discusses this idea in a lot more detail.